on the West Coast from the backyard, chilling out, discussing all things Canelo, Bivol, getting your thoughts. Excited, everybody's talking, the chatter is up about tonight's fight. Obviously, the undercard is probably in the ring already. At least, I don't know, not the televised portion, but at least some of the other fights, the show's probably underway already. What's everybody's reaction? What's everybody thinking tonight? Lots to talk about, really. Like I mentioned earlier on the other stream that I think the big problem with Canelo fight weeks is that people start talking about other opponents, and when you start talking about other opponents, other big fights, it just makes the current opponent have a more difficult time getting a decision if that's the case. If the case comes up that he may well deserve it or not, So we've got a. What are we doing over here? No good?
No, it's good.
Okay.
It's good. Yeah, I just had the wrong background. We're
right.
going.
Yeah, we're going. So that's
Am I going?
that's my thought right now. Everybody's talking about Usyk now. It's not everybody, but there was some chatter about Alexander Usyk and Canelo fighting, and obviously if that's a possibility. First of all, I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy that they could do that. But in reality, I also think that it makes Bivol's situation more difficult because I think Bivol has a style that could really pose a lot of problems to Canelo Alvarez. I've made my prediction. It should be on YouTube by now, but on my page on Poli TV. But when you start talking about other opponents and other things where it only involves Canelo, like nobody's actually talking about what happens if Bivol wins tonight. Like, what does Bivol do? Nothing.
What does happen?
Yeah. I mean, you probably go into a rematch, most likely, I guess, and maybe Golovkin would have to step aside. I don't know, because Golovkin has to guarantee for the fall regardless, right? So I'm not really sure. I don't know how this all plays out, but I do think tonight's fight is a difficult fight. I think it's the toughest fight for Canelo since Golovkin. I mentioned before, you guys know how I feel about Eastern European fighters. I think they're mentally stronger. They're a little bit more difficult to break. Kovalev was a little past his prime, and he kind of was already mentally checked out. But an Eastern European fighter in his prime, who's hungry and has a legacy on his mind, is a more difficult fighter to break than I feel some of the Western fighters might be. I think Canelo has his hands full tonight in a good fight.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Everybody's giving me shit about the waterfall earlier.
Yeah,
we're just doing this on the
I gotta
phone.
be honest. My producer Jim, he's still young. You guys go easy on him, but the background. If you don't see the waterfall, the background sounds like somebody's taking a piss.
Yeah.
So.
It's probably not the best right now,
Yeah.
but we're outside.
We did the best we could. We're trying to make Stoop conversation on the West Coast. You know how it goes, bro.
Yeah.
We don't have the Stoop. I made a couple of videos on Stoops when I was back in Brooklyn, and you get the traffic, you get the real background regardless. So one way or another, if we're gonna be outside, we're gonna give you the live outside. You're probably gonna get some background noise regardless. If I was on the Stoop in Brooklyn, you'd get horns honking and radio systems bumping while people are driving. Either way, you're gonna have background noise if you're outside. And you got the birds chirping. See how nice it is? Little Disney movie background.
Do you think AJ can beat Usyk if he can beat Fury?
In the rematch, I have a hard time seeing how AJ wins a rematch too. At this point, it's up to AJ now to get himself together. At one time he had sort of had the world in his hands, in the palm of his hands. Everybody felt like he might be the guy that nobody could beat. But it's been a few years where he's kind of maybe wouldn't say necessarily lost a step, but he's sort of looked a little bit more penetrable, and and now at this point I have a hard time seeing how he wins the Usyk rematch. I'm not saying he can't. He has obviously tons of skills and he's a very good fighter. We're talking about an Olympic gold medalist against an Olympic gold medalist in that fight. So anything could happen, but right now, the way I see it, I think Usyk has a little bit too many dimensions for him. But we'll see.
Paulie, we got Better Be versus Joe Smith unification in June.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the light heavyweight title fight that really gets my juices going. Now this is a good fight tonight. Don't get me wrong. Canelo, everybody gets excited. It's cool. It's a lot of chatter. But you want to talk about a barn burner, bro. You want to talk about a fighter's fight. A fan's fight. Joe Smith and Bitterby. If it's this dynamite versus dynamite imploding on each other, man. I mean, I can't see that fight going more than 5 rounds. If it goes 5 rounds, I mean, that's crazy to me, man. And more people aren't talking about that fight. Maybe because it's too far out. It's not until June. But that's the light heavyweight fight I want to see, man. I mean, that's not. I'm not complaining about tonight's fight. Listen, I think tonight's fight, everybody's excited about it. But if you're gonna give me which one is the better fight, Bitterby versus Joe Smith for me is the more fun, better fight at light heavyweight than tonight's fight. Both are good fights, though.
Canelo versus Benavidez. Who's the Magic Man got? I mean, we're here. Where are we?
You're gonna hit me right with that. You're gonna hit me with that question right from the Benavidez training camp house. I love to see the fight, honestly. That's why I don't want to hear about all this jumping in weight classes, this and that. Stick around right here, bro. I want to see the Benavidez fight with Canelo. Benavidez is young, he's hungry. He's actually younger than Canelo, so I think if Canelo doesn't fight him, it's only gonna create more and more of a drama and more of a dilemma for Canelo, because I think he's gonna start getting criticized for not fighting him. That's why all this stuff about going up in weight at 201 and all this other stuff, bro. You're gonna come back down and do what? Like Benavidez is younger and he's gonna keep on winning. He's gonna keep on looking spectacular, and he's just gonna create more and more of a demand to fight him. And then the more time passes, the more advantage the Benavidez has, because, like I said, in this case, unlike in the Golovkin case, Benavidez is the younger fighter.
People are asking, do you think if Wilder ever returns, could he be back to form? Or
I think Wilder's still dangerous. I don't know how much he's enjoying his money, or maybe you mentally check out at a certain point when you've kind of done well for yourself. It's hard to kind of sort of get yourself mentally motivated for those kind of punishing fights, those kind of grueling training camps. But I think I think at Wilder's age, he probably would still have something left physically. We'll see how much he's into it mentally to be willing to go for it.
Are you going to be watching the UFC fight tonight at all, or are you paying attention to that?
I'll probably just get updates. But I got the Canelo fight on. We're in the Benavidez training camp. What do we think? What do you think we're doing? Watching the UFC fight tonight with the Benavidez training camp? We're analyzing Canelo, possible future matchups.
But who do you have in that fight? Have you paid attention to Gaethje versus Oliveira?
No, I don't know enough about those two guys to pay attention. I mean, I know Oliveira beat Chandler, who's I know him through a couple of friends of mine, but I don't know. I know Gaethje's pretty good. I feel like Gaethje, the results he's been getting have been better now than he was doing before. So it feels like Gaethje's is sort of hot at the moment. But Oliveira seemed like a guy who was very, very good at a very good world champion, and now he's lost the title on the scale. So I don't know if that is more of a thing of a semblance of fans that'll actually believe he could win it. So I think that people will buy into it. Listen, if that was just a boxing fight and Ngannou didn't have the MMA background, then it's just a boxing fight, I don't think people would care about it, But the whole MMA crowd bringing over this interest, and he punches hard and this and that. Maybe they do with MMA gloves, so it gets you thinking. But in reality, I don't think he's got a shot. But then again, I also I still wouldn't mind seeing them have a go at it and make some money, because Dana White, what he does to those fighters, it's criminal, bro. It's criminal. It's legalized criminal.
What do you think about the Earl Spence offer that was given to Canelo? The catch weight at 164. Did you see that?
Yeah, I don't know if Canelo, how he's going to make this weight at this point. I remember being at that fight week for the Caleb Plants fight and seeing him fight week, Canelo, and he was very dry. His lips were very dry. And I can remember that would happen when you're drying out, making weight, my lips would get very dry on fight week as well. So if he's drying out trying to make 168, then, to dry out 4 more pounds is even harder, especially that he's sort of bulking up more and more into the light heavyweight division. I don't know that the Spence fight is a possibility, to tell you the truth.
Who'd you have?
Canelo. He's too big, too strong.
I mean, how big Spence? Spence is 5'9".
Yeah, but he's a welterweight. It's too small.
Okay, yeah. Do you think there's any other fights for Dillian White, or do you think you should retire for taking a lot of punishment?
I don't know. I think it depends on how hungry Dill is. That's the kind of fight where you finally been waiting for your opportunity to get the heavyweight title, and you lost. And I don't think, I don't know that anybody was really picking him to win the fight to begin with. So I think if Dillian is still Dillian, he can probably make some good money, remaining in the heavyweight picture. You never know. Maybe come back, fight it between Wilder and White. That could be fun, bro. Two guys coming off losses but needing to rejuvenate their careers because they've been at a high level, and the winner would probably gain a lot of press because they still have the big names. I wouldn't mind maybe seeing something like that go on. I think both probably have the option to retire. I'm sure they'd make good money if they were smart with it. But for the fans and even for themselves, it's not a bad combination of a fight right now. Where you get them at this point in their careers and get them fighting one another.
What are your thoughts on Jake Paul and Javonta's last fights bombing in pay-per-view sales? I kind of like that question. What's up with that?
I don't know. I mean, Javonta's got to start fighting fighters that matter. Pitbull turned out to be a good fighter, but I think had they known Pitbull was as good as he was, they wouldn't afford him. That's the problem. You know, so you've got Javonta campaigning in and around weight classes where there's tons of names that people know about. You know, you got your Haney's, your Kambosos, your Lomachenkos, even guys that are a little bit past that are world champions like your Comeys and things like that. And he's still fighting. I don't know, bro. I can't even remember a lot of the names of the opponents. Pitbull was a good fighter, so you remember his name. You know, Pedraza obviously he beat at 130, but honestly, bro, for a fighter who's headlining pay-per-views, to fight this many guys that we don't know who they are, eventually it's got to catch up to you. You know, you can only. I know you want to make the star, and he's got possibly star potential. He's a good fighter, but I don't know. I think the whole Rolly thing, because it's got the background already with the trash talking, and now he's, they sort of cancel cultured him, and they made him lose the pay-per-view to Pitbull, which I thought was an absolute hypocrisy by Showtime once again, as in their typical fashion, because you got Javonta who's hitting girls on camera, who's been caught hitting girls on camera. And then you've got Rolly just being accused without any proof, and obviously naturally all charges got dropped now, and they can take the fight. And yet they pushed him out of that fight back then. You can't get any more hypocritical than the way those guys are running their show consistently. So regardless, now since Rolly all charges are dropped, Rolly's back allowed into the circle of trust. To quote Robert De Niro, I analyzed this, in Meet the Parents. So he's back in the circle of trust, and he's going to headline the pay-per-view against Javonta. Yes, listen, Rolly is a pretty good puncher. He's pretty dynamic. I think Javonta may have a couple extra dimensions for him though. But Rolly's a live guy in that fight. Again, I mean, you haven't seen Javonta with the biggest names to where you can say at any given point like, oh, this guy doesn't belong in the ring with Javonta. Why not? I mean, Javonta hasn't really fought the biggest names. He fought an old Gamboa. It's like, I don't know, man. I guess people, the fact that if they bombed, I guess people are sick and tired of that. I don't know. And I say it's the same thing with Jake Paul too. Probably people wanted to start seeing him fight a real boxer, even if it was maybe not a boxer in his prime, but somebody that actually did boxing for a living. And maybe the fact that he hasn't done that, and he keeps fighting. I think eventually maybe people are getting tired of it. But I don't know, bro. I was at that Jake Paul fight. That arena looked pretty full, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know about these whole buys, bombing and stuff like that. How do you have a full arena and you get no buys? I don't know. The arena was packed when I was there.
Yeah. Have you heard of Canelo's "No Boxing, No Life" gloves being very low in padding, or
I don't know enough about that to make a comment on it.
Yeah. Yeah. People are just talking about. They're kind of giving you shit.
Give me shit. Yeah.
Give me shit. Is Chavez Sr. the most overrated boxer in history?
No. I mean, that's perception, really. I don't know. I mean, he's got some good wins, man. I don't know. Yes, he's got a lot of cab drivers too, but he's got some. I don't know, man. There's some good wins there. Chavez was. You talk. You know what it is with you guys. I speak to guys that fought these guys. So. I get the perspective from good fighters that fought these guys. And the experiences of having been in the ring with Julio Cesar Chavez. Good fighters that were in the ring with Julio Cesar Chavez. They give you that real perspective. Chavez was a good fighter. Then if you want to rate or overrate, depending on whether he deserves all that credit, and that's the best Mexican fighter ever. I don't know. I mean, again, that's debatable too, because you've got a lot of great Mexican fighters that have come along in history, but. I can't say that, you can't just come out and say that he's overrated in the manner that you say he wasn't even good. Chavez was an excellent fighter. Chavez Sr.
Chavez Sr. What are your thoughts on Chavez Jr.? Didn't Canelo fight him?
Yeah. Let him make a couple of bucks.
I think
that was out of respect for the father, and he let him go the distance too.
But he had a belt, right?
Yeah, he did. Somehow, man, Chavez got a belt. But he also got that belt because they made a whole political move. They wouldn't let HBO wouldn't let Sergio Martinez defend his title against Sebastian Spake, who was the #1 contender for the WBC title. HBO would not allow Spake to be the opponent. So Martinez has nowhere to defend his title against his mandatory against Sebastian Spake. So what is he gonna do? He's gonna he can't defend it for free with no TV. TV that wasn't accepting Spake as the opponent, so he vacated the title. And then WBC they put for the vacant title. They ended up putting Spake in for the vacant title against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And all of a sudden, HBO does buy the fight. So there was a political move to make Chavez Jr. a world champion. I mean, granted, he was able to beat Spake, who, although not that good, was still, I don't think he ever belonged in a title fight. But nonetheless, he was the guy that was there. And and Chavez beat him. So Chavez was able to be a world champion, but there was a lot of maneuvering there. Chavez Jr.
Do you think there's
he has a win over Andy Lee, which will resonate, in time, because Andy Lee ended up coming back and having a pretty good career and winning the WBO world title.
Who's Charlie Burley?
Charlie Burley was an excellent fighter. I've heard a lot of legends about Charlie Burley. Not enough footage, unfortunately.
So he's the most underrated.
Yeah, I've heard he was a terrific fighter. But again, there's a lot of legend because you don't have a lot of footage there. But I've heard Ray Robinson didn't want to fight him. I heard he never got a title fight, but he beat certain champions in non-title fights. I don't know. There's a lot about Charlie Burley that I've heard, but all good things. But unfortunately, man, there's no footage really to back a lot of it, or not a lot of footage anyway.
So he's an old fighter.
He's an all-time fighter, but a very, very shrewd, crafty guy from the looks of the small fighters that I've seen and the things you read about him. But again, one of the things I've learned in my life about what I read about fighters, none of you writers know shit about boxing. So it's hard to take you seriously when all you have is information about what people wrote. Because, man, writers don't know shit about boxing. I mean, you're talking about the guys that have to break down technique now. I mean, you can give opinions on who you think wins and loses, but, now you got to give me opinions on, because there's no footage on a guy's boxing ability. I gotta take your opinion of it. I know you don't know what you're talking about. That's very, very difficult. But for all intents and purposes, I've heard a lot of good things about Charlie Burley. And honestly, probably Robinson should have probably fought him. The fact that he didn't probably tells me that he was dangerous. But how dangerous, I'll never really know. Because again, I've seen how incompetent writers are when it comes to discussing the techniques and the nuances of boxing.
Best boxer from Philly ever.
Oof, man, you hit me with that randomly out of nowhere. Joe Frazier comes to mind. Elder Taylor's one of my favorites. I wouldn't say he's the best out of Philadelphia, one of my favorites. Man. Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know. I off the top of my head, it's Frazier, I guess. But, I mean, there's been a lot of excellent Philadelphia fighters that you can, you probably need a few minutes to think about that answer. That's not that off the top of my head, I say Joe Frazier, but I may think about a few other guys later and think like, oh, maybe this guy deserves to be number one all time out of Philadelphia. Who else was a Philadelphia fighter but was born in Brooklyn? George Ardello.
Mm-hmm. People are asking if Gabe Rosado. I asked that question because they're asking what's next for Gabe Rosado. He just lost to Shane Mosley Jr.
Yeah, Rosado. There comes a point where you do get a little bit worn out. I mean, Rosado has given all of himself to boxing. I mean, to the entertainment of you guys, and deserves a lot of credit. I mean, but I think the Mosley fight, it might be. I'm starting to think it might be the last moment. We gotta be here. I'm starting to think that it's the last moment. It's the sort of last hurrah for Rosado. Then we all reach that point where, we sort of, start to fall down at a certain age, especially in a lot of tough fights. Rosado lasted a lot longer than most people thought he would. Rosado got further than a lot of people thought he would, even earlier in his career. Because even earlier in his career, they were not taking care of him, and he was having to be an opponent, even as a prospect. Even in the prospect stages, he was an opponent. So he made his way up the boxing ladder the hard way, made his money the hard way, and gave all you guys entertaining fights a lot of the time. It took a lot of bad decisions, but I think he's finally worn out. I'm not sure where he goes from here.
Why is the Bronx better than Brooklyn?
It's not. Brooklyn is better than the Bronx.
Is that just a question that always? Is that
I don't know. Maybe the Bronx.
People always
I don't know. There's the borough rivalries and stuff like that. Listen, the Bronx has Yankee Stadium. It's cool. The Bronx has Arthur Avenue, Little Italy, which, at this point the Albanians have it, but. It's better than what we have in Bensonhurst, so we have nothing at all, So we lost to the Italian area in Bensonhurst. So, I mean, if you want to give advantages to the Bronx, I'll give you the advantage that, you still have a Little Italy section. The Albanians are still running the Italian restaurants well. They basically bought them all, and they still keep the culture there. And Yankee Stadium is there. It's cool too.
Somebody said London or NY.
NY. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think London's cool as a touristy spot, but I mean, it doesn't really do it for me. Like, honestly, when I'm in England, I think Manchester's more fun. I feel like the culture in Manchester is pretty cool. The weather sucks, but the culture in Manchester is more fun than the London culture. But London is the kind of place you have to go to if you haven't been to it, because it's got a lot of touristy stuff. There's a lot to see. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, NY. But honestly, to tell you the truth, NY now or NY from when I grew up, NY when I grew up all day. I mean, it's not even NY to me anymore. I feel like a stranger in my own city.
Why through? I'm looking for how many rounds he's gone. But how come Canelo's never been caught?
Never been caught. He's been caught. I think Jose Cotto, Miguel Cotto's brother, hit him with an overhand right that rocked him.
Are you just saying that because you beat Jose Cotto?
No, I actually saying that because that's the only time he got rocked.
Oh, it's the only time he got rocked?
Actually, Golovkin rocked him. Golovkin rocked him in round 10 or 11. But Cotto had him probably the most hurt. But that's it. I mean, so he has been caught. He recovered from it, but he has been caught. As far as in big fights, he's been caught too, but somehow his chin got better.
Do you know any Romanian boxers? Shout out Romanian Mike. He keeps on. Are there any Romanians?
Yeah. What's the name? My guy, the one that fought Benavidez for the title. You're kidding me, man. The one that fought Benavidez for the title. They fought twice. Yeah, they fought twice. Top of my head now. I forget his name. You imagine? It's my guy too.
I got you.
Yeah.
Gavril?
Gavril, yeah, Arno Gavril, yeah.
Gavril.
He's a Romanian boxer. Romanians were known as good amateurs, to tell you the truth. Obviously, they were the communist country until 1990 or so. They used to produce some really good amateurs, but they couldn't turn pro, right? So, I mean, in reality, the Romanians have only been allowed to turn pro for the last 30 years, so there's not a lot of professional boxing history there. But I remember there was these two brothers that were Romanian in the amateurs. Even after communism, the culture was still kind of not to turn pro. And there was these two brothers in like the 90s, maybe early 2000s even, out of Romania. They were good. I forget their names. If you guys know their names out there, let me know. But they were amateur. I don't think they ever turned pro, or maybe they turned pro for a couple of fights. But they were medaling in Olympics. They were pretty hard to deal with. I remember. I forget their names now, but they were also Romanian boxers, but amateurs.
What happens when Cubans turn professional now?
It's interesting. It'll be cool. I think, when I said that I think Eastern Europeans are the ascending culture in boxing, I think maybe Cubans can take over that. I think it's the same kind of background, where you had that communistic mentality, and now you have that freedom to kind of do what you do. But the only difference with Eastern Europeans and Cubans is Cubans have the U.S. so close to here, and if they're starting to turn pro and if they start to stick around inside the U.S., that Western culture pollutes them, man. And a lot of these guys lose their discipline, I feel like the Eastern Europeans, because they're on that side of the world, they sort of kept their discipline when they were allowed to turn pro. You see a lot of Cuban fighters. Listen, some of them are excellent. I mean, Alessandro Lara, even Guillermo Redondo, Joel Casamayor. They've had excellent boxing careers, but some of them you also see falling off. They sort of get caught up in that Western culture lifestyle, and they party too much. So if there's enough of them that stay disciplined, I mean, the Cuban boxing culture is unbelievable. It's top line. I mean, it's top shelf, grade A. So we'll see. It's gonna make things interesting for sure.
People are talking about Charlo versus GGG for 3 unified world championship at middleweight. What do you think?
What, now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Now I don't think GGG has much left now. I don't think. I'm not convinced on GGG anymore, honestly. He's 40 years old. I wasn't crazy about the way he looked at Murata. I was never crazy about Murata, to tell you the truth, but he actually looked decent against Golovkin. I think now, Golovkin is just, it's the end of the line for him. He's probably going to grab a payday or two, maybe try to get the Canelo fight and then be on his way out. He was very, very avoided in his prime. No matter what anybody wants to say, he was very, very avoided. He would have cleaned out the whole house in his prime. Everybody would have got it, and that's why nobody wanted to fight him.
GGG won clear, GGG W Lara draws. What this guy's saying, I don't know. Do you think Golden Boy always has a judge in their back pocket?
No. I mean, I think in general, I think the powers that be, when they have a lot of influence, Golden Boy doesn't have as much influence as they did anymore. Listen, boxing is in cycles right now. It's always been in cycles, really. When I was a kid, you had Don King, main events were big promoters, right? As far as I'm concerned, even Bob Arum, of course, Top Rank has been around for several generations. They've always been the ones that consistently stay up top, no matter how many others change around. Then when I turned pro, Golden Boy started to sort of make their big name and make their push. Main events started to kind of dip out. And Don King also started to kind of dip out. And Top Rank and Golden Boy were sort of the biggest deal. And now, Al Heyman started to creep into the background, and then, they're creating PBC. I think now, it's Matchroom, PBC, and of course Top Rank. Again, Top Rank remains through the generations a strong contender. It's hard to beat the fighters from those guys because it's their shows. They dictate everything, you know. And so the judges sort of know that, you know, they want to keep in good graces with the promoter, so you keep getting jobs because these are the promoters that have the big dates. So they sort of, you know, you're not buying the fights. Technically you're not corrupting the fights, but you kind of are because, you know, you don't want to, as a judge, you don't want to be on the blacklist of any promoter to where the promoter is asking the sanctioning body not to put you in. Because a promoter, I don't know if you guys know this, a promoter can't ask for a particular judge, but a promoter can ask to remove a particular judge once he's hired. You know, so you don't want to end up on a blacklist of any of these big name promoters who, you know, where you get hired to work a show by your sanctioning body, and the promoter says, no, I don't want this guy. Because the promoter is allowed to say, I don't want this guy. He's not allowed to say, I particularly want a certain guy. But yeah, he's allowed to blackball you. So I think these promoters, they end up in the pockets just by that, you know, by default, just by the way the system is. I mean, the judges do, by default, by the way the system is.
Kell Brook retired today. What do you think?
Brook?
Yeah.
Underrated career, a great boxer. Underrated career, and I think he's not going to get the credit he deserves as well. He's another one who, because he wasn't on the side where all the welterweights were, he wasn't able to show how great he was. He's very avoided. He only got the Porter fight because he was the number one contender for the IBF title. Otherwise, I don't think he would have gotten even that fight. You know, good fighter, but just wasn't on. People won't get to recognize his greatness because he wasn't on the side where all the welterweights were, and so the side where all the welterweights were, they didn't want to fight him.
Paulie, what do you think Terrence Crawford does as free agent? Does he do the Canelo route or sign with PBC? Does anyone give him the fight if he doesn't sign with PBC?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't think he does the Canelo route because Canelo seems to be getting bigger and bigger. I think that the goal is to make the Spence fight.
Could you go over that a little bit, Crawford Spence?
Yeah, I mean it's a good fight. I mean, my pick is Spence, but I think he's too big. I think Crawford has more. I think, and Crawford's higher on the pound for pound list. Ironically, on my pound for pound list, but because he's been through different weight classes and done different things, he's got more dimensions to him. But I think just Spence's size and ability to get inside into the body, I think he'll break a smaller guy like Crawford down. Crawford obviously started at lightweight. He's a smaller guy. Those body shots are breaking natural welterweights. I think they'll really hurt a guy like Crawford as the fight progresses. But I don't know. I mean, at this point, with Crawford being the free agent, he's got to make the effort to try to make the fight. 3 years ago, when he was a free agent, he re-signed with Top Rank, which is why it's hard for me to take seriously the fact that he's now suing Bob Arum, and any idiot that actually takes that seriously is an idiot too, because the fact that you're suing Bob Arum for not promoting you right when you could have left 3 years ago, if that's how you really felt, like you didn't really think you were going to get the Spence fight when you re-signed with Top Rank 3 years ago, did you? I mean, that was kind of obvious. That was obvious to everybody who got that news when you re-signed. So it's hard to take that seriously. So now I want to see if they at least make the fight. Because for me, the lawsuit is kind of frivolous. But now you have another chance to make the fight. Yes, 3 years later. It's a little bit later. But you know what? Both guys are still looking good. You know, both guys have looked excellent in their last fight. And I think people would still really be out for this fight.
You versus Amir Khan right now.
I don't know. Gotta get our canes into the ring, man. I'm worn out. I can't fight anymore, man. I've even turned down one of these exhibitions they offered me. I can't do it anymore.
Who'd you turn down?
Turned down Dan Hardy from the UFC. They asked me to do it on the Patton versus Barrera show.
Somebody was asking about that. Yeah. Is that happening?
What?
Patton versus Barrera?
Yeah. Patton Barrera is happening July 2nd in the UK. They asked me to be the co-main event against Dan Hardy of the UFC in a boxing match, of course. But I was just like, I got too much going on. Like, I'm busy. I'm traveling. I'm not even gonna train for something like that. And then I actually got to fight. It's like, it wasn't worthwhile for me. It wasn't worthwhile enough for me. It was a nice gesture. But I think it would have been a cool thing to be on a show like that because Hatton's amazing in England and Manchester. I think he's gonna sell that arena out. People are gonna just come out in droves regardless. I remember how popular Ricky was, you know? And so I think it'll be a cool event, but if I have to be honest, while I would have loved to have felt that again, it was just too much work, and I got too many things going on, and I couldn't do it, so I turned it down.
Not enough cash? I mean, do you think they paid you
money
enough?
Wasn't bad, but it wasn't enough to make me go away from other things I'm doing. I made pretty good money there, so it had to be it had to be very generous in order for the money to be the effect. But I also thought about the fact that it could have been cool to fight in front of a lot of people again and all this other stuff. It was a lot, and honestly, it wouldn't have really been that difficult either. Being Hardy's a MMA guy, you know, it wouldn't have been a difficult match. But you still got to train. You got to train. You got to, and which when you're training, I got to go away. I got to turn down certain jobs that I'm doing, which I'm constantly working now. I'm constantly working these fights, doing the Polar TV stuff and all this other stuff. You know, I'm traveling one place to another. You know, making easy money. So you know, I got to turn down all those gigs if I'm taking a fight like this. So in the end, it didn't balance out. You know, it didn't balance out. And plus, I'm trying not to fight anymore anyway. I'm doing my best to just keep my mind away from that part of putting that chapter of my life behind me.
And that's part of what you see with like Tyson Fury, right? Isn't retiring just like part of the promotion in a way?
Yeah.
Do you think he's done?
I think he's gonna retire. And he might do the Ngannou fight, but I'm starting to think he's gonna retire. I'm not sure. You know, I'm starting to think that.
Will there be an Italian American world champ
Again?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Italian Americans tend to gravitate more towards MMA now. I see the kids that have the fighting discipline in my culture, and they don't go to boxing. In the United States, anyway. So Italian American or Italian Canadian, I don't think there'll be anyone. If they're something out of Europe, maybe. But the boxing culture in the United States it's not really pulling in so much for the Italian American culture anymore. I don't notice. I've noticed they've sort of veered off to MMA, and you've seen certain Italians and Italian Americans in MMA. You know, my boy Javonta from Long Island. You know, he's a good MMA fighter. There's an Italian kid in MMA, Marvin Vettori. You know, he's from Italy. You know, I just noticed that you know the better fighters in the Italian American culture, the Italian culture, are veering off towards MMA. There's decent boxers in Italy. You know, there's like Canelo who trains in Miami. He's starting to pick up some pace, but it's not really like the same thing anymore. We'll see. Yeah, I find it to be a little bit difficult, but we'll see. You know, I have my eye on a couple of Italian kids from Italy that I've sponsored and see how they develop.
How are they doing? That's what somebody's asking.
They're good. One is undefeated. He's 6-0. One is about to turn pro. You know, we'll see. You know, I just like to sort of, you know, if I can do my part to pay it forward, I do it. You know, but it's not an easy proposition. I'll tell you that.
Here we go.
And my guys are Christian Cangelosi and Lester Cangelosi. In case they do make a name for themselves, you guys heard it here first.
Everybody's saying you're missed on Sky Sports. Do you think Katie Taylor versus Serrano would sell out 80,000 in Ireland?
I'm not sure. I haven't been to Ireland since 1998, so I don't know I don't know to what degree the popularity is. But from what I hear, I mean, she's amazingly popular. I think Taylor and Serrano, based on the fact that they had a great first fight too, I think it's a possibility that would definitely sell well. You know, you guys in Ireland probably know better than me, but I from what I can see, you know, in my eye viewpoint from far away, I think it has potential to sell a lot in Ireland.
Stevenson versus Javonta. Can Javonta go up in weight like that? Go down?
Javonta was a 130-pound world champion at one time. He actually said he might go back to 130. I'm not sure. Be a good fight. I sort of I think Shakur might be at this point. I think I pick Shakur in that fight. But good fight.
Is he the top fighter under 25?
Yeah, he's the top guy. Absolutely, he's the top guy. You know, if he's the top fighter under 25, possibly. You know, I still think Teofimo Lopez. People are sleeping on him after he lost it. I still think Teofimo Lopez has a lot of potential.
People always ask you about Ennis. Is Ennis?
Jaron is good. Jaron Ennis is very good. Is he under 25?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jaron Ennis is very good, and Virgil Ortiz is very good too. Those two guys are like I feel like.
Are they both welterweights?
They're both welterweights. Yeah.
Who would you choose though?
I don't know. I think that's going to be one of the next generation Spence versus Crawford, bro. They're going to be talking about them, and they're not going to fight for a while. That's going to be those are sort of the two dynamic guys at welterweight right now on the rise.
Wow. And then is Munguia young?
Munguia's around here. Munguia's at 160. He's a fun guy, but he's young. Is he under 25? I don't think he's under 25. I think he might be 25 or 26. Munguia, but yeah, he's exciting. He's a good fighter.
25.
Yeah, I feel like he's not getting enough credibility, man. He's been a champion for a while now. He was won the title young. I feel
Oh, he's 39 now.
Yeah, he's a good fighter. Listen, he's not the best, but he's a good fighter. That guy can fight.
Yeah, I beat Gabe Rosado. Yeah, it's all right. I will just, we're wrapping up. Just want to talk about the Boxing Voice tonight.
Yeah, check us out on the Boxing Voice YouTube. We're doing sort of a watch party. We're going to be watching the fight with David Benavidez here at the house. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully they have some food here, bro. I'm getting hungry, you know.
And some coffee. Yeah.
And some, coffee at nighttime. I usually don't drink coffee at nighttime, but
No.
for this fight, I might have to push it in, man. I might have to get it in, man. Even if I'm up all night, going bananas. You know, I don't know. Usually, before I do these lives or I do the Wally TV, I usually drink coffee. But here at the Benavidez house, we didn't have any espresso, so I was kind of calmer today. I don't know. Let me know if you think the calmer Paulie is the better Paulie, or if the coffeeed up Paulie is the better coffee. Is the better Paulie. And I hope to see you later on the Boxing Voice on YouTube. Check us out. It's live. Watch the fight with us, and let us know what you think of everything going on.